Welcome back to my channel. In the first video, I showed you how to create these floating frames from scratch. And in this video, I'm going to show you my painting process of how I created these swallow birds with metallic wings. If you want to see how I created these paintings, stay tuned to find out. Now the first step to start the painting process is actually going to be to prime our MDF board. So we want to do this because we don't want any of our nicer paint to kind of soak into that MDF board. We want to create a really nice and sealed surface. We're also going with a mid-tone gray because we want to cover up this dark brown, and we don't want to paint a white because what our goal is that we'll only have to do one coat for our background color, so this is a very similar tone to what the background color is going to be. Now I'm going to go over this a couple times to really work that product into that MDF board, making sure that everything is extremely even and smooth. And when this is drying, you want to make sure you have it on an extremely flat surface so that it doesn't dry distorted with a warp. When that first coat is dry, we're going to take some of our scrap pieces here so that we can lift this up off of the table so that it doesn't stick and dry to that table. And now we're going to start the painting process. So ideally I would like to do this inside so that the paint wouldn't dry so fast, but being outside I can get kind of sloppy. I don't want to get my basement all covered in paint. And it's a beautiful day out, so we're just going to paint outside. I'll show you a few tips and tricks to be able to keep this paint wet, to be able to work with it and make a gradient. So with this, we want to cover our whole background with our lightest color. We want to apply a very good amount of this so that it stays wet and we can work with it when we are making our circular gradient. So we can paint the outsides with our darkest color, and then we're going to basically feather that darker color into the lighter color so that we get that gradient. And we want to keep spraying this as we go so that it stays wet, because we really want to work those two colors in together so that we get a nice transition from that dark color to the lightest color. And with this, we want to remember it does not need to be perfect. I'm trying to keep these kind of loose brush strokes so that you can see that it's got some nice movement, it's got some nice texture, and also with the background you have to remember, when you put your foreground in, you're really not even going to see the background that much. It's really going to fade into, ironically, the background. So when I get towards the center, I really want to start to lift off a little bit of pressure so that we're almost dry brushing that paint into each other so that it really gets that nice blend. So here I'm coming in with my lighter color and actually bringing that lightness back out and kind of reapplying in just the center so that we get a little bit more of that contrast from the dark to the light. And when I'm happy with the outcome of those backgrounds and I've allowed this to dry for a few hours, I'm actually going to come in and paint a matte varnish over everything so that that kind of evens out that satiny finish, because I really want these birds and the silver detail that I'm about to do to really stand out from this background. And once I've got a nice coat over everything, I'm going to go back and forth with horizontal and vertical brush strokes to make sure that everything is very even and we get a nice matte finish. And once I've allowed that to cure overnight, I'm going to come in and do a dry brushing effect with the silver, and I'm actually using a spray paint that I've sprayed into a Tupperware container, but you can use an acrylic version. And basically what I'm doing is with a very, very light hand and almost no pressure, I'm getting a little bit of that product on my brush, and then I'm gonna just brush where I want that metallic fleck to be. So this is actually really gonna glimmer when you look at it from the side and from different angles, and I'm really thinking about this with how my birds are going to flow through the painting. I'm gonna match that same flow so that it complements the birds that are gonna be over this silver. So when painting these birds, I want to make the process as easy as possible. So once I've had all my birds sketched out, basically what I'm going to do is fill in that background with my navy gray here, and then I'm going to go in with my detail. So I want to be a little bit minimal when I'm going in with this detail, because I know I'm going to be going in with a silver lining over this anyway, so this will actually fall into the background. And here I'm just punching up some of those details. With white, it can be very hard to get an extremely opaque paint, so sometimes you have to go in with two coats to really punch up that white, and in some areas I'm actually going to be painting khaki over this, so I wanted it to be a very bright base. And now I'm adding in my eye. All I'm doing is trying to make this look circular, so I'm doing a gradient from gray to black, and then I'm going to add a catch light to make that eye look shiny and alive. And then we're going to repeat that step about 14 other times. Basically, you want to repeat that, getting your base down, doing your details, and punching them up until all of the bases of your birds are done. Now to make that deep navy blue stand out even more, I'm going to add a dynamic accent color, which is going to be this khaki, and I'm going in with small little brush strokes to really make that look 3D, and I'm also creating a gradient. So basically I'm going in very hard at the top, and then I'm kind of pulling away, and the product will naturally come off of the brush as you're going down, so that it won't add as much product towards the bottom, so you're going to get that beautiful gradient from that khaki to white. And again, we'll repeat that step for all of our birds. Now this is the stage that I've been waiting for this whole process. So this is actually going in with that silver detailing. So like we did before, I actually took that silver spray paint and spray painted it into a Tupperware container. And now I'm just using my small detail brush to really highlight the ends and the edges of these birds to really pull them out and forward from that background. You can see here in the background, you can see a few flecks and strokes of that dry brushing we did earlier. And now compared to this detailing, this is really gonna make these birds stand out from that background. And the coolest part about this is when you move around this painting, this is actually going to make some birds stand out and some birds kind of go to the background, and it's really going to make these almost shimmer, and it's really going to create a cool effect. And I absolutely love how this step can create such small, fine details, like you can see with this detail brush. Going in with these fine lines, it really starts to create almost a texture, making these feathers look real, like they're popping off of that canvas, or in our case, MDF. And I'm really trying to create some variety in the line stroke, so if you push down harder, you're going to get a thicker line, and if you don't put as much pressure, it's going to be a very nice, thin, and tapered line. And to get that tapered line, you really want to start with a little bit of pressure, go thicker, and then kind of flick of the wrist, come off with the pressure to create a nice thin line towards the end. And with that being said, once you're finished with all of this detail work, the painting portion of this project is now complete.